Welcome to this explainer. Okay, I want you to imagine something for a second. Imagine having a literal, step-by-step blueprint of exactly how the world ends, documented over 1,400 years ago. It sounds like a movie, right? But today, we're actually digging into a specific, authenticated text from the deserts of Arabia that maps out how the final chapters of human history are said to unfold. We are going to explore the incredibly fascinating Islamic eschatological sequence known as the 10 major signs of the hour. So, here's our roadmap for today. We'll be moving through 6 distinct phases. First up, the prophetic framework. 2, global smoke and deception. 3, the point of no return. 4, salvation and chaos. 5, Earth's final collapse. And finally, preparing for the hour. Let's get right into it.
Section 1, the prophetic framework establishing the timeline.
All right, so to set the stage, according to Islamic tradition, the end times are actually broken down into over 70 minor signs. And, a lot of scholars argue we're already seeing those fulfilling in our modern era. But then, there are exactly 10 world-altering major signs. The source text claims we are currently living in that era of minor signs. But listen to this. Once these 10 major signs kick off, the text says they will trigger rapidly. Boom, 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 one right after the other.
And the master key to this whole sequence? It's a 1,400-year-old authenticated narration from a collection called Sahih Muslim. It explicitly states, "The hour will not come until you see 10 signs." And then it literally goes on to list every single major apocalyptic event that we are about to explore.
Moving right along to Section 2, Global Smoke and Deception, the First Apocalyptic Trials.
Okay, so the text outlines the very first major sign as al-Dukhan, which translates to the smoke. This is an inescapable atmospheric global phenomenon. It's described as this massive, visible cloud of smoke that covers the entire globe at the exact same time. Now, modern scientific minds might immediately think, oh, that sounds like a nuclear winter, or maybe a massive volcanic eruption, right? But the source text presents this as a direct, divine, atmospheric event.
Now, what's really fascinating here is the duality of this apocalypse. The source claims that your internal spiritual state literally dictates your physical experience. Think about that. You could have 2 people standing in the exact same smoke, looking up at the exact same sky. But for the believer, it's just a mild, totally bearable cold, while for the disbeliever, the smoke is a severe, consuming physical torment that causes intense swelling. It's this incredible concept where faith literally acts as a physical shield.
Right after the smoke comes the Dajjal, and the source frames this as the absolute greatest trial of deception in human history. Described as a one-eyed false messiah, he's said to possess immense, mind-bending supernatural powers. We're talking about commanding the sky to rain, telling the earth to grow crops, and even appearing to resurrect the dead. All of this to trick humanity into worshiping him. And the text notes he's going to travel the entire globe in just 40 days, leaving millions, maybe billions, deceived in his wake.
That brings us to Section 3, the point of no return, the final spiritual sorting.
Up until now, people still had a choice. But in this phase, that window of repentance closes permanently. According to Islamic eschatology, a creature physically emerges right out of the ground to address everyone who ignored the divine warnings. And to be clear, this isn't some poetic metaphor. The text describes a tangible, physical beast whose sole purpose is to permanently categorize the entire human race.
So the really crucial point here is the absolute elimination of ambiguity. Every single human is permanently sorted into one of 2 camps. The creature marks the believers, so their faces carry this luminous glow, while disbelievers get marked with a permanent darkness on their nose. There's literally no more gray area, no more hidden intentions. Everyone's spiritual truth is broadcast directly on their face for the entire world to see.
And then, the cosmic rules completely flip. The source states that when the sun actually rises from the west, an involuntary belief takes hold of everyone. But here's the catch. It instantly renders any new faith completely worthless. Imagine looking up at the morning sky and seeing the sun rising from the wrong horizon. The sheer, undeniable shock of this cosmic reversal will literally force every single human being to believe. But because that belief is forced by overwhelming visual evidence, the door to repentance slams shut forever. Faith, by the text's own definition, requires believing without seeing. And once you see this, it's just too late.
Let's move on to Section 4, Salvation and Chaos, the return of Isa and release of Yajuj and Majuj. Right when the deception of the false messiah hits its absolute peak, salvation literally arrives from the sky. This timeline maps out the return of Jesus, known as Isa in the text. He is prophesied to descend near a white minaret in Damascus. From there, he leads the pursuit of the Dajjal, ultimately defeating him at the gate of al-Ard, which is located in modern-day Israel. And following this incredible showdown, the text describes an unprecedented 40-year golden era. We're talking global peace, complete justice, and absolute harmony, where wealth is so abundant that charity isn't even needed anymore because nobody will take it.
But, as you might guess, that peace is eventually shattered. It's disrupted by the release of Yajuj and Majuj, or Gog and Magog. These are overwhelming forces that, historically, have been sealed behind an ancient barrier of iron and molten copper. Once they break free, the text describes them swarming the earth in uncountable numbers, literally drinking rivers dry and consuming all natural resources. And what's really fascinating here is that they absolutely cannot be defeated by weapons or armies. Isa and the believers actually have to retreat to a mountain and rely entirely on divine intervention through sincere prayer to stop them.
Accelerating toward the conclusion now, we hit Section 5, Earth's final collapse, the three sinkings, and the fire.
At this point, the Earth itself begins to physically break down. The source describes three massive, world-altering sinkholes called Khasf, but these are framed as deliberate divine acts, not just random geological accidents. We aren't talking about small, localized events here. These are catastrophic regional collapses where the Earth simply opens up and swallows everything on its surface.
Now, while we're remaining impartial to the precise scientific mechanics here, it is undeniably fascinating to see how these prophesied regional collapses actually map on to highly active modern tectonic zones. Notice how the East, the West, and the Arabian Peninsula align almost perfectly with some of the most volatile seismic regions on our planet today. From the Ring of Fire to the San Andreas Fault to the Red Sea Rift, it reveals this really incredible parallel between ancient eschatology and modern geology.
And then we reach the final major sign, a massive fire emerging from an ancient volcanic caldera in Yemen. But this fire doesn't just destroy, it hurts. It physically pushes every single remaining human being northward to the land of Sham. It's literally the closing curtain on the physical world, gathering everyone together into one place for the ultimate conclusion of human history.
So, with all 10 massive apocalyptic events laid out, we have to pivot and ask, what do you actually do with this knowledge? What is the real takeaway from such an intense theological sequence? Because, especially in the tradition of this source material, knowledge without action is considered entirely useless.
Which brings us to our final part, Section 6, Preparing for the Hour, from Apocalyptic to Personal.
How does a person living today actually use this ancient map of the apocalypse? Well, according to the text, surviving these future trials requires immediate action in the present, specifically through fixing your 5 daily prayers, building a protective relationship with the Quran, and making sincere repentance right now. The text is crystal clear. You cannot wait for the smoke or the beast or for the sun to literally rise from the west to start building your faith. The protection against this apocalypse isn't a physical underground bunker. It's a spiritual foundation that has to be laid today.
We'll wrap up this explainer by leaving you to ponder a deeply provocative question. The source material outlines an inevitable, unstoppable sequence of events that will eventually lock in the fate of humanity. But right now, you have the exact thing that everyone living through those major signs will be begging for. You have time. The door is still open. So the question is, how will you choose to use yours today?